There's a quiet frustration I hear from a lot of high-performing professionals. I'm doing great work, but somehow I'm not standing out, is what they say. They look around and they see people who don't seem smarter, don't seem more experienced, don't seem more committed, getting opportunities they want. And the advice they're given usually doesn't help. They're told to speak up more, raise their hand more often, or take on more work. That advice isn't just unhelpful, it's often counterproductive, especially if you're getting louder in ways that don't make sense for your specific organizational culture. Standing out at work is not about being louder or busier, and both of these behaviors can actively work against you once you reach a certain level. Rather, standing out is about selective visibility and usefulness at the right altitude. Let's start by clearing up a misconception. When people say you need more visibility, what they often mean is you need to be more seen. But being seen is not the same thing as being remembered. And being remembered is not the same thing as being valued. Plenty of people are visible and still not promotable. They're in every meeting, they respond to everything, they're always on. And yet, when decisions are made about who should lead something bigger, their name doesn't come up. Why? Because standing out isn't about volume. It's about clarity in the specific moments that matter, where they matter, and with whom they matter. Think about where careers are actually shaped. It's not in routine updates or status meetings. It's in moments of ambiguity, when priorities are unclear, when trade-offs have to be made, when something is off track and no one wants to name it, when leadership needs to decide what matters most and what can wait. These moments are the ones that create tension. And tension is where leadership shows up. The people who stand out are the ones who know how to enter those moments calmly and make them easier. They don't add noise, they reduce complexity. They might say things like, let me try to summarize what decision we're actually making here. Or, if these are the constraints, here are the trade-offs we're accepting. Or, here's what we need to believe for this to make sense. Or, before we keep going, can we align on what success looks like? Those aren't loud statements. They're clarifying ones that everybody in the conference room will appreciate. Clarity is magnetic in organizations, and where you provide it is how you make your career. Another mistake is assuming that standing out requires charisma, and it doesn't. It requires structure. Leaders remember people who bring structure into chaos. They remember the person who can take a messy discussion and turn it into 3 clear options. They remember the person who can synthesize what's happening across functions. They remember the person who closes the loop at the end of every meeting so everyone leaves knowing what happens next. Don't you wish that person was in every meeting you attended? If you want to stand out, pay attention to how you use meetings, because that's where careers are made. Many professionals treat meetings as obligations, calendar items to survive or multitask through. But meetings are actually stages, not stages for superficial performances, but for judgment. Here's a simple way to think about it. The first 5 minutes and the last 5 minutes of a meeting matter more than the middle. In the beginning, leaders are orienting. They're asking themselves, what's this about? Why does it matter? Who's driving this? They might even be wondering why they're there. If you can help frame the discussion early, even by asking a sharp question, you establish your presence. At the end, leaders are evaluating. Did this move us forward, or did I just waste my time? Do I trust this group to execute? Is someone clearly accountable? If you can summarize decisions and next steps cleanly, you leave a lasting impression. Standing out often happens in those small, overlooked moments. Another critical element is how you talk about your work. Many capable professionals describe their work in task language because the activities are what show up day to day. They say things like, I'm managing the rollout, I'm handling stakeholder communication, I'm supporting the team. These descriptions are accurate, and of course, this is always work that needs to be done. But these descriptions are also utterly unmemorable. People who stand out translate tasks into outcomes. They don't assume others will make the connection on their own. So they say, I'm reducing friction between teams so we can hit the timeline. I'm aligning stakeholders so decisions don't get escalated late. I'm creating visibility so leadership can course correct early. Same work, different altitude. This matters because senior leaders don't have time to infer your value. They remember what is explicitly stated, especially when it comes to business priorities. Standing out also requires understanding who actually needs to see you. A lot of people waste energy trying to be visible everywhere. They think more exposure equals more opportunity. In reality, opportunity is shaped by a relatively small group of people. Your manager, your manager's peers, your skip level, so that's your boss's boss, and a few influential cross-functional leaders. You don't need to impress absolutely everyone. You need to be known accurately by the right few, and that's more realistic anyway. It means being intentional about where you invest relationship energy. It means asking yourself, who influences decisions about scope, promotions, or high-impact projects? Who needs to trust my judgment for me to move forward in this organization? Where does my work intersect with leadership priorities? Standing out is often about positioning yourself at those intersections. Another underappreciated way people stand out is through clean follow-through. Seems obvious, but so many people don't do it. When you send a concise recap after a key meeting, outlining what was decided, why it matters, and what happens next, you are doing leadership work. You are making execution easier for everyone else, and you are creating a visible artifact of your thinking. When done right, this is not administrative, it is strategic, but pay attention to the difference. People who consistently create clarity after discussions quickly develop a reputation as the person who moves things forward. That reputation travels, and it's the one you want. Now, let's talk about busyness, because this is where many high performers get stuck. Being busy often feels like being important, and a full calendar can feel like proof that you're needed. But busyness is not a reliable signal of value at higher levels. In fact, constant busyness can signal the opposite, that you're embedded in execution rather than shaping outcomes. The people who stand out are the ones who are less frantic. Certainly not because they care any less, but because they've learned to prioritize leverage. They ask, what work actually changes outcomes? What work can only I do? What work should I be delegating, delaying, or potentially even declining? They protect time for thinking, for alignment conversations, for anticipating issues that haven't yet arisen, not just for responding to them once they do. Standing out also means letting people see how you think, not just what you do. If leadership only sees your outputs, they can't assess your judgment. If they hear your reasoning, how you evaluate trade-offs, how you anticipate risks, how you decide, they can imagine you at that higher level. This doesn't require long explanations. It requires selective transparency. Emphasis on the word selective. A sentence like, "Here's how I thought about this decision," can go a long way, especially when someone is curious about it. Finally, standing out requires letting go of a fear many professionals carry. If I don't stay visible through activity, I'll be forgotten. But in reality, people remember impact, not effort. They remember clarity, not volume. They remember the person who made a hard situation even just a little bit easier. So if you really want to stand out, stop trying to be everywhere. Instead, choose the moments that matter to your organization. Bring clarity where there's confusion. Translate work into desired outcomes. Make it easier for others to execute. And make sure that your work is known in ways that make sense for your organization. You don't need to be louder. You need to be useful at the level that the organization actually rewards.